Hi everyone, welcome to my review of Dumbo in 1941. This is the fourth Disney animated feature film and it's directed by many different directors. I'm not going to name them all, there's about 8. But yes, another Disney film and of course, this is one that is very, very popular. You could say really all of the Golden Age ones are, but yes, Dumbo is definitely a very popular film and it's a film that I rewatched tonight. I've not got the Blu-ray actually, unfortunately. The other Golden Age films. And when I say Golden Age, I say to me this is the original 5 animated films by Disney. So Snow White, Pinocchio, Fantasia, this, and Bambi. And yes, basically I have all the other Golden Age Blu-rays, but this one I watched on Sky, and it's a one that is probably when I was a kid, probably my least favourite of the Golden Age, and it still is. But I think it's a stunning film, no doubt. Now this is the one that, of course. Basically at the time, Disney were kind of struggling a little bit, after Fantasia was kind of, the losses of that. This was a bit more, low budget and kind of, what they tried to do was keep the animation simpler. Again, it was originally meant to be a short film, but they decided, of course, to actually make it a feature. But it is, one of the shortest animation, feature films by Disney, because of this, I think. And yes, basically, you could say it's kind of controversial at times, as well, the psychedelic kind of sequence, that goes on in the film. But yes, basically, I always liked it as a kid, but I didn't like it as much as, say, and this is kind of spoilers, Bambi, Snow White, as I say, kind of the most of the Golden Age films. But yes, I did really like it, and I watched it again in 2014, and it was even better than I remembered, and once again, it's grown on me even more. It's probably the most I've ever liked this film, because I now love the film. Definitely, I can say that this is a great film, and it's just thoroughly creative. It's got so much wonderful moments, and it's a short film, but it's just a wonderful story. And of course, if you don't know the kind of story of Dumbo, I'm not going to go into it really, but traveling circus, of course, and these elephants, kind of. There's this kind of weird thing that goes on with this thing that drops, the babies to all these animals. But yes, basically, in one of the opening scenes, you see Jumbo Jr. get dropped off, and basically, because of his ears, they are big ears. Basically, he gets nicknamed Dumbo, and it's kind of about bullying, and kind of yes, basically as well. Of course, issues raised, in this film of kind of animal cruelty and kind of what goes on. Or what went on in the circus, and it is disgusting, but it does it in such a wonderful way, the way it portrays this, and very, very sympathetic character of Dumbo, and basically kind of a coming of age, film. Dumbo, of course, does not actually talk in the film. He's a silent protagonist, and there are other, talking animals and humans as well, and of course he meets Timothy, the mouse, who basically is one of the only ones who really befriends, Dumbo, and basically sees him for what he is, kind of thing, and doesn't bully him, stands up for him, and basically they form a friendship, and as well, there's things happen, throughout the film where kind of separation between, of course, Dumbo and his mother, which is very famous, and basically it's a very short film by Disney, but it really is a wonderful film, and especially the ending act is just stunning, really truly is, and you've got so many iconic moments in this film. Now the opening scene, it just kind of draws you into this kind of, it's kind of a weird film, it has got its weird moments, you could say, but it draws you in, and it's really wonderful animation. I think it is more, of course, as I've said, simplistic, as to all the ones that came before this, the first 3. And I think it's still wonderful animation. It certainly is, and it's more about the creativity, because it's so good behind the animation, behind the sequences. The simplicity of it, and certainly in comparison to the previous 3, doesn't really hinder it at all. It still has a massive charm to the film. Watercolors, were used for the backgrounds, so it's very, very nice look to the film. But yes, if you compare it to really the other Golden Age films, it isn't, for me, as good. It's the worst, animation of these, and for me, off memory, the worst film of these. But I still absolutely love it. It's among my favourite Disney films, definitely, and yeah, just animated films in general. I think the way it explores its themes of bullying, and animal cruelty and all this kind of stuff, and just rising up to to kind of society, just in general, you could say, and deals with acceptance and everything like that. It's just really wonderful. Very, very heartfelt, and it's full of warmth, and the kind of bond that Dumbo and his mother have. Kind of, it's just really wonderful to watch, and as well the friendships that form. Kind of 20 minutes into the film onwards, it kind of starts. And I do have some flaws with this film. I think it is the worst of the golden age, really, for me. I haven't seen Fantasia in quite a few years, though. But I always liked that more, and I just think, it's probably a better film than this. Still, I can say that. And who knows what I'll fully think of that, when I rewatch it. But of course, Snow White, Pinocchio, and Bambi, I can safely say are for me much better than this, and I do prefer them. But yeah, basically, the things that I do have flaws with in this film, just early on, kind of, I suppose some of the characters, the other elephants that are in the film, the ones that kind of ridicule Dumbo, I think they could have been better. They're a bit annoying at times, you could say, for me, and I suppose there are really good scenes that are in most of the time, but when it focuses just on them, they're not that compelling. They are a bit annoying, and just could have been done better. The writing there and the voice acting as well a bit. But that's really some of my only flaws of the film early on, and there's a couple of scenes here and there where it's a bit, in comparison to what it should have been, a bit more flat. But the rest of the film, despite these flaws, is really absolutely stunning, really, for the most part. And yes, of course, the sequence, that visual sequence is, more than halfway through the film is just stunning. Many people say, it's just it's stupid and unnecessary, but I think it is. Yes, it's very, very different, but it is genius. The animation here is stunning. The sequences, that are put together here, and in the context of the film as well. It's kind of, in the context, it's a very lovely moment, and kind of. Yeah, it does move forward the plot and the character development for Dumbo and Timothy. I really love that sequence. I think the creativity there, is stunning. One of the best visual sequences, in a Disney film, probably, for me. Just amazing. And I think the rest of the film, is stunning. And the second half is miles better than the first half. But, as I say, it's just a few things here and there that don't bring the film down. From being great, definitely overall, and the high end of the 9 mark, you could say, definitely over the the halfway mark. But yes, basically, the character of Dumbo, straight away I felt sympathy for, and I really loved this protagonist. Very cute, of course, and he doesn't say anything, but he doesn't really need to, and it's more about the kind of the situations and. Just as well the bonds that you have, the relationships that he has with different characters across the film. And the film, of course, is set around mainly a circus. And yes, there's something about films like this, or really anything involving circuses, that can go out of hand. I think really due to the nature of the circus. A circus, it is of course mad. It is madness. It is strange. The very nature of it. And there's many films actually that I've seen that just when they bring circus elements into films, it can be a bit stupid, and it can be just off, if it doesn't, if it affects the tone of the film, and it can be just strange and random. That's it, really, really random. Films can be if they bring in these sort of elements, but luckily this doesn't, and it doesn't in a way where of course it actually shows the issues of animals used in circuses and stuff like that, and actually it involves it allows the film to have many different action sequences that are actually really thrilling, thoroughly creative. The use of all the clowns and everyone are actually used to great effect, and so it doesn't actually do this this film it has actually got something to actually say, and it doesn't just mess about kind of thing, which it could have done in these scenes. And it's always used to kind of drive the characters forward, especially Dumbo and Timothy, and as well they meet these birds towards the end of the film as well, and I love them characters as well. So basically, the second half is a lot better for me. It has better characters, better character development, It's just it doesn't really have any flaws at all for me. The second half, the first half, it has a few here and there, and just kind of in general these other elephants, they're not that great. There's a couple of moments where it does work, with them on their own, but mostly the scenes that they are useful, are kind of when they do, kind of bully Dumbo, of course, because it is, of course, very effective in the way that you sympathise, of course, with Dumbo. But when it's just kind of left, on them for a minute or two, it's not the best of scenes. And yes, I'd definitely say the as well, there was one other flat scene, just when you kind of saw the shadows of these guys kind of talking for about 1 or 2 minutes, and you couldn't see them, of course. It was trying to conceal the fact that the animation was a bit more simplistic, than the previous three animated films, and it was very effective and an interesting idea. But again, there was a scene where it focused on these characters that weren't, really that that interesting, and you didn't really see them, and it was just maybe a scene that shouldn't have been in there, or it could have been done better. But overall, I think this is still a stunning film. It does have flaws for me. It's not perfect, like some of the Golden Age films are. There's a spoiler. But for me, this is a stunning film. Truly great animated film, and I think the way as well, the flying scenes, the kind of in the film that are present, of course, are absolutely stunning. They're just magical, full of wonder, and I love the animation in this film, despite it being a bit more simplistic. Not as much. There's not as much wonder in the film compared to, say, Pinocchio. That's for sure. It is less so that it's more simplistic. It doesn't have as much of an atmosphere, you could say. But on its own, it is absolutely stunning. I'd have to give it a 96%. I think this is an absolutely wonderful film. Lovely little simple story. It's told beautifully, and very, very human film. And I sympathise massively with this character of Dumbo. A great science protagonist. I loved the kind of coming of age aspects of the film. I loved Timothy in the film. I really loved him. I loved how he was the one that kind of was nice to Dumbo and stuff, and I loved the bond between Dumbo and his mother. It was beautiful, beautiful stuff. Very, very moving. And that's another thing about this film. It does, when it gets these moments, it's very, very emotional, and that's a film, a thing that cannot be ignored. Really, with this film, very, very emotional stuff. Human, very uplifting. Very, very powerful as well. And but really, it's got its spiritual moments as well. And just comes together really amazingly at the end. The outcome of this film is it's inspirational, definitely. And I think there's so many sequences in this film that are just absolutely masterful. Overall, it's not quite a masterpiece for me. It's not far off. And if the first half had been as good as the second half, definitely would have been a masterpiece. But overall, it's still a great film, and 96 from me is amazing. An amazing score. I love the music as well in this film, just amazing. And just as I say, the visual sequences, even though the animation was more simplistic compared to a lot of the Golden Age, all of them, it does have its moments where it really does, it's mind-blowing stuff visually, just due to how they've designed it, the kind of thing, and just the colours and everything, really wonderful stuff. And I think this, the pink elephant sequence is the one I'm referring to that really is just genius, and many people call it stupid, and not necessary, but I really loved that sequence. And just a great sequence on its own, but really as well, just in the context of when it happens, and context of the film, it is amazing. And just the whole ending act is just mind blowing, really, for me. I think it came together wonderfully emotionally, and just wonderful film overall. It does have flaws, as I've said. And yes, even if it is the worst of the Golden Age, really, I'll say it now, the Golden Age, for me, is pretty, I think it's the best age of Disney, for me, definitely, and, even better than the Renaissance, and the Revival Age, and all this kind of stuff. The Golden Age, if you refer to the first 5 Disney films, definitely, hands down, the best period for Disney for me. And consistently the best period of animation, full stop, easily, and that's just my opinion. I don't think it's quite that popular now. That opinion to have, but really it is for me the best age. And even though this is probably the worst one, it's still pretty close to masterful. That just says it already. Wonderful film, very inspirational and just very joyous. It's also very sad, and just in this space of this roughly 62 minutes or so, just covers a lot of ground. And at first it's a adventure film, and then it's much more focused on the characters, and it's just emotions of it. So yeah, Dumbo, a stunning film. It has flaws and it's not a masterpiece, but it is a truly great film. Definitely, a classic Disney film that it's just really it's the best experience I've had with the film. Although I obviously really liked it before, yeah, it's been, as I say, it's probably been about 4 years since I saw it last. So yeah, it's just a stunning film, and it'll be very, very high on my Disney ranking. That's for sure. So thanks for watching my review of Dumbo, and I'll probably be reviewing Fantasia, actually, the original, pretty soon. Within 2 weeks. And then I'll be moving on to the ones, I can say I absolutely adore, and you'll see how much I do when I review them films. The first three, the other three, sorry, of the Golden Age. But yes, thanks for watching my review of Dumbo. Highly recommend it, and yeah, thanks for watching.